Vice Chairman Warner, members of the committee, first, thank you for your gracious comments, particularly for John and me, as this should be our last hearing, although one never knows, there's still 10 days left. But more importantly, the comments about the work of dedication and the patriotism of the women and men of the intelligence community, so we appreciate that. We're here today to present the intelligence community's assessment of Russian activities and intentions during the recent U.S. presidential election. As you indicated, some aspects of our report involve very sensitive sources and methods that we can't discuss in this open televised hearing. So obviously you're asking for your support and understanding as we need to defer to a closed setting. Our remarks today are based on a highly classified assessment that was produced by the three agencies represented here, the CIA, FBI, and NSA, at the request of President Obama, which we, as you also indicated, released publicly in a declassified version last Friday afternoon. Report covers the motivation and scope of Moscow's intentions regarding the U.S. election and Russia's use of cyber tools and media to influence U.S. public opinion. I want to make clear that this report does not, repeat, does not assess the impact of Russian activities on the actual outcome of the 2016 election or draw any conclusions in that regard one way or the other. The IC's role is to assess the intentions, capabilities, and actions of foreign actors, not to analyze U.S. political processes or U.S. public opinion. We can say that we did not see any evidence of the Russians altering vote tallies. We can't discuss the full range of classified information that supports our conclusions because of the extreme sensitivity of these sources, but the key judgments in the public and classified versions are the same. I can say that the report draws on intelligence collected by all three of these agencies represented here, and some of which only came to light after Election Day. When the IC says high confidence, we mean we have multiple high-quality sources of information that contribute to that assessment. Intelligence comes from a wide range of sources, including human sources, technical collection, and open source information. The key judgments are based on corroborating sources that are consistent with our understanding of historical and current Russian behavior. And while we cannot publicly disclose most of the information that backs up these judgments, we have briefed the report in detail to President Obama and his team, President-elect Trump and his team, and congressional leadership, and this morning, the House Permanent Select Committee for Intelligence. They've had the opportunity to explore the report and pose any questions they've had about the basis for our conclusions. Both the classified and public versions of this report were written by seasoned, nonpartisan intelligence professionals consistent with the highest standards of analytic objectivity and tradecraft that the IC has refined over the last 15 years or so to ensure we provide policymakers the most accurate insights that we can. And I also need to add that this reflects the intelligence community's view, not that of the administration. Attributing cyber operations is difficult, but not impossible. Every cyber operation, malicious or not, leaves a trail. IC analysts use this trail and their constantly growing knowledge base of malicious actors and their tools and methods to trace operations back to their source and determine their connections to foreign governments. And this is exactly what we did here. Let me start by, with respect to the findings, is that we'll first address Russia's goals and intentions. We have high confidence that President Putin ordered an influence campaign in 2016 aimed at the U.S. presidential election. The goals of this campaign were to undermine public faith in the U.S. democratic process, denigrate Secretary Clinton, and harm her electability and potential presidency. Putin and the Russian government also developed a clear preference for President-elect Trump. Russia aspired to help President-elect Trump's election chances when possible by discrediting Secretary Clinton and publicly contrasting her unfavorably to him. Moscow's approach evolved over the course of the campaign based on Russia's understanding of the electoral prospects of each of the candidates. When it appeared to Moscow that Secretary Clinton was likely to win, the Russian influence campaign began to focus more on undermining her future presidency. Moscow's influence campaign blended covert intelligence operations with overt efforts by Russian government agencies, state-funded media, third-party intermediaries, and paid social media users. We're highly confident that the Russian intelligence services conducted cyber operations against people and organizations associated with the 2016 U.S. presidential election, including both major U.S. political parties. Russian military intelligence, or the GRU, compromised the email accounts of Democratic Party officials and publicly released victim data using the Guccifer 2.0 persona and DCLeaks.com and in exclusives to media outlets. They also relayed material to WikiLeaks. Russia collected on some Republican-affiliated targets, but did not conduct a comparable disclosure campaign. Russian intelligence obtained and maintained access to elements of multiple U.S. state or local electoral boards. However, the Department of Homeland Security assesses these types of systems were not involved in vote tallying. Russia's state-run propaganda machine contributed to the influence campaign by serving as a platform for Kremlin messaging using Russian government-funded outlets such as RT. Moscow has long sought to undermine U.S.-led liberal democratic order. Russia, like its Soviet predecessor, has a history of conducting covert influence campaigns focused on U.S. presidential elections. They've used intelligence officers, influence agents, and press placements to disparage candidates perceived as hostile to the Kremlin. Moscow's behavior reflects Russia's more aggressive cyber posture in recent years, which poses a major threat to U.S. military, diplomatic, commercial, and critical infrastructure networks, as well as we've seen now, our elections. However, Russia's activities in 2016 demonstrated a significant escalation in directness, level of activity, and scope of effort compared to previous operations. And we assess Moscow will apply the lessons learned from the 2016 campaign aimed in the future to influence efforts worldwide, including against U.S. allies. I'd like to wrap up by saying I've now got just 10 days left in my 53 years or so in the intel business, and I've seen the IC get things right and get things wrong. But I believe the level of professional tradecraft and cross-agency intelligence integration required to put this report together gives me great confidence that we've gotten it right here. With that, we'll open for your questions.
Director, thank you for that thorough and concise testimony. Director Clapper, as I stated in my opening statement, I've instructed a select group of committee staff to complete an independent and bipartisan review of the reporting that underpins the intelligence community assessment before us today. Do I have your assurance that you will provide the access that they need to the reporting necessary to make their conclusions?
Yes.
Director Comey, let me talk about forensics for just a minute because the FBI has the expertise there. And I know there's tremendous investigative value when the FBI is actually able to conduct their own forensics review on devices that have suffered cyber intrusions and attacks. I believe there's some confusion, though, or at least some conflicting reporting as to whether the FBI requested access to the DNC's services, the Democratic Congressional Committee servers, and John Podesta's personal devices. Did the FBI request access to those devices to perform forensics on.
Yes, we did.
And would that access have provided intelligence or information helpful to your investigation and possibly to the findings included in the intelligence community assessments?
Our forensics folks would always prefer to get access to the original device or server that's involved. So it's the best evidence.
Were you given access to do the forensics on those servers?
We were not. We were a highly respected private company, eventually got access and shared with us what they saw there.
But is that typically the way the FBI would prefer to do the forensics, or would your forensics unit rather feel the servers and do the forensics themselves?
We'd always prefer to have access hands-on ourselves, if that's possible.
Do you know why you were denied access to those servers?
I don't know for sure. I don't know for sure.
Was there one request or multiple requests?
Multiple requests at different levels, and ultimately what was agreed to is the private company would share with us what they saw.
There's been much debate over the content released by WikiLeaks. Director Clapper, and I should say DC Leaks, and what the intentions were behind those disclosures. Director Clapper, you made it perfectly clear in your testimony that the community feels that vote tallies were not altered.
That's correct.
Do you believe there's any evidence that the DNC or the DCCC or the Podesta emails released publicly were altered in any way?
We have no evidence of that.
Director Comey, do you have any intelligence that any Republican system that was targeted by these same groups was either successfully penetrated, or if penetrated and there was data exfiltrated, was there any exfiltration?
There were successful penetrations of some groups and campaigns, particularly at the state level on the Republican side of the aisle, and some limited penetration of old Republican National Committee domains.
Penetrations of those National Committee domains?
Right, they were no longer in use.
Okay. And from a standpoint of Republican candidates that were running for president, were those campaigns, any of those campaigns, targeted under the same effort by the Russians?
The campaigns themselves, not to my knowledge.
Okay. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, let me thank you, Director Clapper, for your report and the point that you continue to make, that it was not your job to analyze the effects in terms of the political campaign. I would add that any of us who are up here who've ever been through a close election means that any small item can either be cause or harm. I want to follow up on where the chairman was headed. Dr. Comey, there was some information, though, that was taken from Republican-affiliated entities. There was a great deal of information taken from Democrats. There was selective leaking, as the director has indicated, with a clear political intent in process. One of the things that I'm flabbergasted is that somehow this is viewed by some as in the rearview mirror. I mean, don't the Russians have the capability of taking even if it's old information about Republicans or other information about Democrats and selectively leak that prospectively?
Sure.
And could you describe, to my mind, this is not only one of the most significant items I've seen in my political life, but this is an ongoing threat to all of us and our electoral process. We have to be on guard, and could you speak, or any of the members of the panel speak to the fact that, do you expect to see similar tactics used by Russians in terms of the upcoming elections in Germany, France, and the Netherlands?
Yes, we do.
And then are our allies taking what's happened in America with significant enough importance, and are they putting up new defenses trying to guard against these activities?
I can't say at least I can, maybe others can here, the extent to which they have reacted to this, but they are certainly aware. Europe has long been a target of Russian attempts to manipulate electoral processes, so they will continue with that. And certainly because of the controversy that's generated in our country, I think that will reinforce their desire to do that.